enchanted blades, sorcerers, and obsession with fruit milk. This is the world of Kagurabachi. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Kay, and today we are of course talking about Kagurabachi. Before we dive into it, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and let's get to it. So this is less going to be a series overview, as it is going to be kind of talking about where the series is, but for those who are unfamiliar, let's just kind of hit the highlights. The story of Kagurabachi takes place 20 years after an event known as the Seitei War. This particular war was fought between the sorcerers of Japan and an invading sorcerer nation from below the sea. That's a whole story for what we're currently at, but essentially this fight was done over resources known as Datenseki. Datenseki is actually the mineral that allows the enchanted blades to use sorcery in the first place. It's an extremely powerful spiritual mineral, and yeah, if you control it, you're pretty much really powerful. This war was fought between 6 sword bearers bearing enchanted blades created by Kunishige Rokuhiro. All 6 of these blades had this Datenseki material mixed in with it and were able to channel different spiritual energies. Eventually, these swords brought about an end to a war and a win for Japan. Then one of them killed 200,000 people and had to be put in prison. But magic swords! See, our story follows the son of Kunishige, Chihiro. Now, Chihiro Rokuhiro's entire purpose is to find these 6 enchanted blades and destroy them. He wants to help undo what his father did because his father saw them as a great regret. So his final act before his father is murdered is he creates a 7th blade. This 7th blade is given to Chihiro and he begins his quest. Now, his father is killed about 3 years before the events of the story, and so we follow Chihiro as he follows these different blades. Now, each blade has its own wielder and its own name. Of course, a lot of these blades are no longer in the hands of the original wielders, but we do get to see Chihiro interact with some of them. One of these enchanted blades is Cloud Gouger, which has a thunder weather-based attack. The main sword that is a big problem is the Magatsumi, otherwise known as the Shinichi, essentially denoting that it is the premier blade among the enchanted blades created. This blade is under lock and key along with the sword master who killed 200,000 people, and Chihiro's determined to prove himself, earn the sword, and destroy it. See, some people believe that they could just replace the original sword bearer with a new sword bearer and have this person use this particular blade, the Shinichi blade, in order to bring about the peace that it originally was supposed to do. Some people view it as, no, we have to destroy this particular blade because basically it corrupted the mind of its wielder. It's a very interesting conversation that they have throughout the series, with Chihiro determined to take the blade for himself and destroy it, while others are determined to use it, but to try to use it for good. But then the question becomes, who defines good, who defines who it gets used on, and who is not going to fall prey to this sword, which clearly has some sort of effect on people's minds. Other swords that we get to see throughout the series include the Kumiura, as well as Tobimune. Now, Tobimune is based on a phoenix. It's able to use phoenix-like powers, including healing. It's a really cool thing, and it's wielded by a blind samurai, who is no longer blind because he healed himself. Phoenix sword. It's even crazier when you realize he blinded himself because he didn't want to see people getting killed. Now he's unblinded himself to kill the one guy. Magic sword. All joking aside, this story has been really fun. It is a little brutal in some of its imagery, but a lot of the storytelling has a lot of great beats in it. From Chihiro essentially having to wrestle with, what do I do with these swords? How do I become a swordsman? Because up until this point, he'd always trained as a swordsmith with his father, watching him, helping, his dad wanting him to have nothing to do with it because, again, he regrets the fact that these blades were ever made, but then now he has to become a swordsman, wield this 7th sword, and stop the original sword bearers. By the way, who are considered heroes for everything that they've done, including the one guy who, can kill hundreds of thousands of people with a single sword stroke. So there's that. And what's interesting about this story is that we don't meet Chihiro at the beginning of this and watch him kind of progress and slowly, I have to do this. No, we join him right in the middle of this fray, basically having adopted this mission and going on it, and so we watch him adjust in real time. See, Chihiro's been on this quest for the last 3 years, so we actually join him when he's not wet behind the ears. He's done a lot of work, and he's very scarred up for it. It's a hard path being a swordsman, especially in a world where sorcerers can use enchantments to not only increase their weapon power, but not even have to use a weapon. And a lot of the story follows Chihiro as he learns more about the Enten, how to use it, and what his father's intentions were regarding these enchanted blades. Along the way, we meet other characters, such as a friend of Chihiro's dad, a guy named Shiba, who is helping Rokuhiro in his quest to get these blades back. Along the way, they meet some other characters, including who is sort of the other main character in Hakuri. Hakuri has this cool ability to essentially create an entire pocket dimension, fill it with stuff that he wants, and go in and out as he pleases. We also meet other characters like Seiichi Samura, the one who wields Tobimune, or Uruha, the original wielder of Kumeyuri. Now, he no longer has it, that's a whole part. Again, this isn't to go over the whole series, but to really talk about where it is. So what's interesting about Kagurabachi is it spent a little over 100 chapters. I want to say it got up to 112 chapters, possibly, maybe 111, 112 chapters, telling the story of Chihiro. Then it flips. See, we go back in time now, and we are looking at Chihiro's father, everything he did to create the blades, and the events that led to the Seitei War. It's a really interesting structure because flashbacks are not new. I mean, One Piece is full of flashbacks, and everyone looks forward to those flashbacks. They explain so much of the story, they give us new characters that we haven't got to meet yet. That's what's happening here, but it's the way it happened that's a little strange. You see, these first 112 or so chapters end with the breaking of the Enten blade, and then Chihiro having to go back and reforge it while everyone else is in hiding from the original Swordmaster who created the massacre 20 years ago. He goes back to forge the blade, and the next thing we know, it says end of part 1. That's crazy. Are we going to get a time skip? We're going forward. We're going to see the remaking of the blade. Based on the ending, though, with everything going on with the Swordmaster, we don't really have a lot of time to go into this apocalyptic style world, but I mean, we theoretically could. I'm not sure where the story's going. It almost feels like it needs to pick up a lot sooner, but instead, part 1 finishes, and then part 2 is in the past. Again, flashbacks are nothing different or out of place in storytelling, but it's really interesting that rather than tell the story of this war, the making of the blades, who Kunishige is, and everything that he did leading up to his eventual death and the taking over his mantle by his son, we start with the son, and then now we're going to go back and explore everything that Kunishige did, all the way up to, I would assume, his murder, because we do learn bits and pieces throughout the first part, but now part 2 of Kagurabachi is completely set in the past. This is a really interesting way to do things, because in the present timeline, we've only met 4 of the enchanted blades. 2 of them are completely missing. So we have 4 blades, the Enten, and then 2 blades that are just out there somewhere. We haven't even met their wielders. And for some of the blades, we've heard about their wielders or seen their names, but we've never seen them in person or how they fight, anything about them. So now we're going to learn about these different sword masters, who they were, the way that they fought, the different abilities that their blades have, and what made the sword master make the choice that he has. Essentially, it feels like we've explored the hero, now we're exploring the villain, and then I would assume part 3 is hero versus villain. In a way, it's very similar to the style of Star Wars, where we went through the saga involving Luke finding out that Darth Vader's his father, eventually him ending up dying after he kills the Emperor, and then Luke going forward carrying on the mantle of his father as the one who set the balance to the Force, and then essentially leading everything into good. And then we got the prequels where we went back in time and actually explored Darth Vader as a child. It was interesting, though, because we were alerted to that, sort of, very slightly, in the fact that the original Star Wars is episode 4, and then the sequels are 5 and 6. So obviously there's a 1, 2, 3 somewhere. Well, we got 1, 2, and 3. So that's what's happening here with Kagurabachi. But it felt like it came out of nowhere. And again, this isn't a criticism of the story itself. I actually think the story is really good. I enjoy the characters. There's a lot of characters I want to see more of. Characters I want to come back. Different characters that I want to get more involved when we come back to the present timeline. But There are plenty of characters in the past, especially Kunishige, that I have a lot of interest in and want to learn more about. Kagurabachi has been an exciting, battle-based manga with a lot of action, and it is definitely heavy on the action, but it is not light on exposition or storytelling. The world building is pretty good. I wouldn't call it great, but it's very fun. It keeps me engaged, and the story definitely feels like it has a purpose. It's driving. Chihiro's mission is our mission as readers. So the fact that we get to the point where he has to reforge his mission, make it anew, remake the intent, and move forward, we as readers are going to move backward. So while Chihiro is going one way, we're going the other. But that's going to help us as readers learn more about what Chihiro decides and where the story could possibly be going. What even got us here in the first place? We've only gotten hints and pieces littered everywhere throughout the first part. Like, we know who killed Kunishige. We know what the Sword Master did. We know kind of the way his sword works and some of its abilities, which a lot of the abilities are crazy. I definitely encourage you, if you like different ability-based battles where everybody has their own thing, this is a really good one. So with all of that said, my one concern is let's not make the current villain, the Sword Master, let's not make him overly agreeable with. This is something that happens in stories a lot. A lot of stories want to make villains sympathetic, or hey, we can kind of understand where their viewpoint is. That's the worst kind of villain. You can, one that can actually make sense and convince people to follow him. Well, I would disagree. I would say the worst villain is the one who's the most successful at doing bad things, regardless of the motivations. Again, I always bring this up, but if you think about Lord of the Rings, Sauron is an incredible villain. He is pure evil, though. There is nothing redeemable about him, nothing good. Do you hear me, Rings of Power? There is nothing redeemable, nothing good about Sauron. There is nothing redeemable about him, and his entire purpose is to control and destroy and prop himself up as master of the world. That can be a very terrifying villain, just as terrifying as a villain who maybe has good reasons but chooses the wrong road. Based on the first part of the story and everything with Chihiro, I want to follow Chihiro. I want to follow his story. I don't necessarily want to see all the decisions that Soga made that led him to what he did and come away thinking, oh, maybe he was right. Because what I don't want is to get to the end and the author going to be like, maybe this is right, maybe this is wrong. No, I like a clear delineation between good and evil, and that's not always necessary, but I think it's good for stories. A lot of stories nowadays don't want to take the hard stand and say, this is good, this is evil, unless it fits into a certain mold that's already allowed or kind of fits whatever's in vogue these days. Sometimes I just want a story where the bad guy is the bad guy because he's a bad guy. So we know the Seitei War was only 1 year and 5 months. Now this is pre-war. They've kind of started inching towards it. The blades have not been made, but we have been introduced to the first time Kunishige sees Datenseki. But there's a lot of story here. We have a whole year and 5 months to get to know these characters in world. I doubt we go day by day or even month by month. We may hit specific points. But if it's as long as part 1, we're looking at another 112 chapters of this part of the story. Hopefully, by the time we get back to Chihiro, we are not only ready to see him again, which I think a lot of us as fans are, but I hope that we're ready to, alright, we gotta right the wrong of the Sword Master, as well as help vindicate Kunishige. Now, I think that's the interesting part. I feel like a lot of people can come away from the story thinking, yes, the Sword Master is bad. He took matters into his own hands. What he did was ill-advised. But readers should be able to come away from the story and think Kunishige either was right to have created the swords in the first place or wrong to have created the swords in the first place. I think that's more of the interesting dynamic, because essentially Kunishige is not the villain. However, he views himself that way for the creation of the swords, but he's lived his whole life raising his son, trying to instill good values in him. How does one approach what Kunishige has done, not only ending the war by creating these blades, but causing the tragedy that's used? It's its own philosophical argument. I fall on the side of it was right for Kunishige to create them. I think he was wrong in who he chose to wield the Shinichi. I think there is a lot of variation there. But again, I don't have the whole story yet. But that's kind of where I'm leaning. So my hope is that we can look at Kunishige and kind of have these conversations about what he did, but I want to look at the Swordmaster after this whole point and say, yes, he is wrong, his ideology is wrong, he's going about it wrong, and now we have to do something about him. And that's personal preference, because I'm going to be honest, people can tell a story where the villain is sympathetic, and it's great. It's one of the reasons people do it all the time. I do think one of the reasons a lot of people try to make the villain sympathetic or come around and flip the story, something like Wicked, where it's like, what if the bad guy is actually good and the good guy is actually bad? A lot of that is just to confuse people and make things gray, but also, in a way, make it look like evil is the better option, and that when these stories were written, what's really the tragedy here is that the good person got to say that they were good, and I disagree with them. I think the bad person was the good one. When most of our classic stories, that's clearly not the case from a morality standpoint. I am okay with a sympathetic villain. I'm okay with a villain who you can understand but see where the logic leads to where they've made the wrong choices with the information that they have. But I think we're all kind of yearning for that black and white. We're the good guys. This is the bad guy. No, we're not coloring, a wide swath of people who are going to be reading this book. That's another thing. A lot of people want to make it current day and say, Group A is evil, Group B is good, let's have them fight. No, we need to come together and just say, Group A is all of us with our disagreements and everything, and then Group B are Killy McKillerson people. There's people who openly say things like, I am evil, I love evil, I want to use evil. Let that be your villain. Not, group of people you don't like. So, with where Kagurabachi's going, I'm not really sure. I'm very interested. I do think this go back in the story is a good thing. It took me off guard. It definitely got my attention. Especially after having been behind a few chapters, not knowing this was going to happen, and then binging through the whole series, and then, whoa, wait a minute, what is going on? It was a lot of fun. And again, like I said, I'm very interested to see what they do with the villain. What do they do with the Swordmaster? What do they do with Soga? I don't know. I think it'll be cool. There is a part of me that just wants him to have made a bad decision, or even the sword. So there's a lot of hints that the sword is what corrupted him. So maybe it's possible there is something in the sword. And that also makes the Kunishige question a lot more difficult, because we're not just dealing with swords or weapons in general. We're dealing with things that quite possibly have not necessarily a sentience, but its own character and morality attached to it that begins to color the minds of the people who use it. I think that would be kind of interesting to explore. So there you have it. If you're caught up with Kagurabachi, let me know what you think in the comments. If you haven't caught up, I highly encourage you to go read it. It is a lot of fun. Be advised, there is a little bit of gore, but the action is really fast-paced, and you can breeze through the parts that you really don't want to look at. But I think the artwork is very good. It has a very dark, heavy line-shaded drawing, so it may put some people off, but I think it really leans into the themes as well as the overall atmosphere that the story is trying to tell. I think it's really good. I highly encourage you to go read it. It's a lot of fun. Definitely looking forward to an anime adaptation. I think the battles in that are going to be pretty crazy. I don't know if they'll be Demon Slayer level. I kind of hope they will, because I read all the way through Demon Slayer. Its sword battles were really well drawn, very good. I think this has potential. It would be a little more visceral, but it could be really good. So I'm looking forward to that. Let me know what you think. Again, down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. I am pointing. See you next time.